Now in this next section we're going to talk about influencing others, but specifically through the pull style. Essentially there are two ways that people generally try to influence people, and that's through pushing or pulling. Pulling is much more complex and requires a great deal of skill to be able to utilise the pull technique effectively and influence people well. Through pushing people, generally we find that the push style is more directive, okay? Whereas the pulling style really relates to this quote from Dale Carnegie in the sense that we really need to try and make people want to do whatever it might be, or influence someone to do whatever we might need them to do correctly. The question for you: what is influence, or how do we define it? Well, influence is really the ability to persuade other people to accept a point of view, to adopt a specific agenda, or take a specific course of action that we want them to. Influence, or being able to influence people, is a skill that requires a great amount of application and a high level of technique to be able to do it well. Now, there are many qualities that make up an influencer. I want you, just in your groups, to brainstorm briefly for 5 minutes what you really think these qualities might be. Let's move on now to the styles of influence. And I talked earlier very quickly about the push versus pull styles. And in this section, we're going to look at these two in a little bit more detail and try to understand more about how they are diametrically opposite to each other and what the key behaviours are within each of these and what is desirable and what is not desirable. Let's start with push. Now, pushing influencing style is when you really are very directive. You tell people what you want them to do. Sometimes it is necessary to tell people what to do in order to get something done. Sometimes we need to be extremely pushy with people to get something done. However, from a factor of influence, it's not very influential behaviour. It's very directive, and perhaps illustrates a weakness in that you need to push because you weren't able to exert enough influence to pull the other person in the first place. And secondly, when you explain why and how without inviting much comment or reaction, essentially your words are a monologue, so it is not a dialogue with the other person. What I mean here is you are just telling someone what needs to be done, and it's not open to any discussion or debate. The key behaviour types here are giving information, proposing, but also shutting out. So, my word is final. It's my way or the highway. Okay, you must do as I say. This needs to be done, need it done now. Again, it's very directive. It's not very influential, however. Let's perhaps look at pull. Again, as I mentioned, the complete opposite behavioural type. The pull style is when we use questions to really funnel down and probe and extract information, but also explain why and how we would like something to be done, a task to be completed, a role to be carried out. The key behaviours here are that, as opposed to giving information, It's open. We are seeking information from the other person. It's a dialogue, it's shared, and we allow the people we are trying to influence to buy into our thoughts and our ideas. Therefore, we are sharing ownership and thus building more, more potential for identity to be built between us as two people. So, not only do we seek information, but we also seek proposals and focus on building, whether that's relationships, whether that's building information channels, whatever it might be. The emphasis is that it's a shared procedure and process that takes place between two people or a greater group. So which style should I use? And when should I use it? That's the question you're probably asking yourself now. Well, really, it depends on who you're trying to influence. Like I said, it could be a character trait of someone that really needs to be pushed in order to get things done. It would also depend on things such as the situation. But ultimately, you as a person need to have the awareness of other people, when to push and when to pull in order to extract influence or exert influence over that person. Now, it also depends on what you expect them to do. If you need a task done by 3 o'clock, it needs to be done before 3 o'clock. There can be no messing about. So we get straight to the point and we tell. However, if we're in a brainstorming session, for example, and we're sharing ideas, and or we wanted to sell and have people to buy in, we might open things up a little bit and things might take a bit more time. These guidelines of use for both the push and the pull style would be things like the manoeuvrability, how much movement exists for you and how much flexibility there is for you in influencing that person. Whether there's time pressures, whether there's any resistance from the other person to you that you're trying to influence, the various commitments, whether you're looking to build short or long-term relationships, the level of authorities that might exist between, let's say, a boss and a subordinate, or vice versa, whether you're dealing with expert knowledge, and also, finally, the level of skill that you might actually have at this current moment in time as an influencer. So, if we just again compare and contrast pull versus push. Push exposes you to rejection. Let's say you're in a brainstorming session and you're putting across ideas. If you start to get pushy on your ideas, you expose yourself to a greater chance of your ideas being rejected or your thoughts being rejected by the greater group. If we look at the opposite here with pull, pull really opens things up. Using the pull method allows you to test your proposals. Again, it's about seeking information, not giving information. So you might have a proposal, but if you open it up, take into account other people's thoughts and perspectives into it, pulling actually enables you to test this on other people and get greater buy-in to those ideas. Again, pulling requires flexibility and also the ability to adapt and change your ideas. Someone who's very pushy has a very fixed idea of how they want something to be and is not open to any kind of negotiation or change on what that might be. Adopting the pull style really has, or requires, should I say, a greater deal of flexibility in being able to use it well. So you have to be open-minded to what other people are thinking or saying.